Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Precisely Nowhere. It is April. The weather is getting warm in California, and I am going to New York today, actually. So, when this episode comes out, I will be back from New York. It is a quick trip for one of my best friends. She's getting married in June, so we are doing a bachelorette. So, very excited for a little bit of New York City time. I am taking a couple days off from work so that I can explore and embrace and enjoy the city. Can't wait. This episode today is going to be short and sweet so that there's fresh content for next week. Wanted to keep it light for this week and fun. So the focus for today is going to be all about moving to a new city. So 10 tips for moving to a new city. This is based on my experience from moving to New York when I was 17 and also moving back to California when I was 29. So, lots of experience moving to new places. And when I first moved to New York, I was moving there for college. So, didn't know anyone, had only been to the city twice, and I had no idea what I was doing. For some reason, I thought in my head that it was going to be easy to move to New York. Like, I would just move to New York. And I didn't even factor in my head being homesick. I thought maybe I would be homesick a little bit, but it would be fine. I would be in New York City. Like, how amazing is it to be able to go to NYU and be in New York City? Such a dream. So I didn't factor in the being homesick or any of those obstacles. Being in a new city and a place, not being familiar with your surroundings. I ended up living there for 12 years. So obviously I still love the city and fell in love with it. And in another world, like a metaverse version of my life, I have a trust fund and I have an apartment in New York City still. And I also maybe have a home in California because let's be real, it's the metaverse. So we're dreaming now. And I would be able to frequently go back more often. And I am definitely working towards that. That is the perks of having many friends in New York, as I'm starting to realize now that this trip that I'm going for 5 days. I'm staying with my best friend in my old apartment. So I don't have to factor in staying somewhere, which is great. And I have other friends that I could stay with if I needed to. So I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm not going to abuse it, but I'm going to take advantage of that because I love the city so much and I need to keep my Delta status where it's at because I like the perks. I've decided that I'm going to make sure that I go back to the city multiple times a year. This is my first time back since September. I kind of don't count that trip because I was there for less than 72 hours and I worked the whole time because it was a work trip. So I didn't get to really enjoy the city, like just have a lot of free time. It was fast and furious trip. It was really great because I got to hang out with some of my coworkers that I hadn't met in person. So that was really fun. But having lived in the city for so long and it being my home, it's so nice to go and be able to go to a museum or just walk around the East Village. I love it so much. So 10 tips for moving to a new city. This can apply to you if you're single, if you're in a relationship, if you're moving with friends, and really at any age. I hope that you find it helpful. And if you're noodling with the idea of moving to a new city, this is for you. So take this episode, save it, listen to it on a rainy day if you need to, if you need some inspiration and pick me up. I definitely have been there. And even though I'm from California, New York City really became my home. So moving back to the suburbs to be near my family has been amazing. I love being near my family. I have a niece and nephew. I want to be around them and I have a huge family. So that's been really great, but it still has had its highs and lows. And I am on a daily basis trying to stay focused on the good and think about all the things I have done and not the things that I haven't done. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through the tips. But number one is try new things. New places call for new adventures. I mean, why would you move somewhere new if you're not going to be open-minded and explore? Embrace the new place. It's not forever. Piece of advice my dad gave me when I was thinking about moving back to California, and I contemplated it for years. Probably I want to say 5 years at the most. It was in my head. I knew it was a big move. So I really wanted to let myself process it. He was like, if you move back home and don't love living at home, near home, you can always move back. And my logical brain, fireworks are going off because it is such a big move to move cross country that in an ideal world, if I was going to move, I wasn't going to move again. It's expensive. There's a lot of like logistical budget things to consider, but at the end of the day, I did really take to heart what he said. And it did give me that freedom of you can always move somewhere again if it doesn't work out. So, in the meantime, say yes, try new things, explore your city. Even in the suburbs here, there are lots of cute little boutiques, hikes. Any city has something to offer. You have to be willing to find it and have that adventurous state of mind, that curious side. And if you are looking to make a new place a home, even if it's temporary, try new things. Second tip is overcome the fear of doing things alone. There's a lot of safe places out in the world. And ideally, if you're moving somewhere, it's a place that's safe for you to live, but try to do things alone. We can't always rely on other people to do things with us. And I'm experiencing this even moving back home. I thought, oh, I'll be back home. People will be around to explore, do things with, but everyone has their own lives at the end of the day. So while there might be people around us that can do things with us if we invite them, I think taking the initiative to do things alone, and you can start small, going to lunch by yourself, going to dinner. These are things I practiced a lot when I moved to New York City because it's such a hustle and bustle city that truly you need to be able to do things alone to be able to do things, not just sit in your apartment or in your dorm room or feel like you are waiting for someone else to do things. So I got used to doing that when I was in New York City, and I'm trying to get used to it again in the suburbs because now I'm in a relationship. So I'm used to doing things with my boyfriend, but we also have different schedules. So doing things alone, going to the park. I love going to museum alone, just exploring on your own time. I love doing things alone. I love doing things with friends and people too, but it is nice to just get up and go shopping. There are so many things that you can do. I go to Home Goods, TJ Maxx, Target. I mean, the list can go on, but overcoming that fear if it's something that you're not used to, because it is important and it'll hold you back if you're not willing to take yourself on a date or take yourself to explore. And if you can't drive and you want to go somewhere far, try to take an Uber if you can or Lyft. So be solution oriented. The next one is similar to this, but be content with being alone. So you can conquer the fear of doing things alone, but try to be content with being alone and use this as an opportunity to get to know yourself or try a new hobby or pick up an old hobby. This is really in general, if you're moving somewhere and you don't know anyone, embrace that and get to know yourself. Like, what do you like doing when you're alone and you don't have your friends that you typically hang out with to do something with, or that local place that you are used to going to every Wednesday for trivia, or your family? Embrace getting to know yourself. It is a liberating thing to know yourself truly in and out, what you like doing, what your hobbies are, what is your vibe if you were going to have a Saturday to yourself. And I think that's so important, especially if you are single or even in a relationship, having that autonomy still to an extent. We all are individuals at the end of the day, even if you're in a relationship. It's important to know ourselves. And I think when we know ourselves and we love ourselves and understand ourselves, that helps us be better equipped when we do eventually get in a relationship, if that's something you're looking for. And in the meantime, to be content with ourselves and be happy. So, just an opinion. Tip number 4 is embrace new friendships. Say yes to that invite for dinner or girls' night or a double date if you're in a relationship. You never know what will come from it. approach that friendly person that you see when you're shopping or at the gym, or for me at the pool in my apartment complex at the pool. Put yourself out there, embrace new friendships in this new city that you're in. Wouldn't it be great if you made a friend or two? Who knows how long you're going to live there, but I think friendships are great. And I think friendships are important as part of our life. We don't need a bunch of friends. I feel like you need a good core amount of friends, but it does help to have some people that are in the vicinity of you, and you never know what will come from it. My boyfriend's really good at making new friends, better than me, to be honest. He is so friendly and has made friends at the gym. I will keep to myself at the gym and I watch my TV shows, and I am trying to be better at that, taking my own advice, embracing new friendships. And that can be old friendships as well if you're moving somewhere where you maybe know someone but haven't been in contact with them in a while. I've taken that route. That can be a little bit of a safer route if you are trying to push yourself out of your comfort zone, but tread lightly. So I do think it's really important, though, to embrace new friends and talk to people. You never know who you're going to meet. When I was in New York City, that was my home. So it was so easy for me to be friendly with people because I was in my comfort zone already. But now that I'm out of my comfort zone, I'm realizing it's harder for me to put myself out there because I'm already feeling a little bit out of my comfort zone, still getting used to living in California again. So it can be hard, but it can pay off so much. I've made so many great friends by being open, especially in New York City, and I'm so glad for it. So highly recommend that as a tip. Tip number 5, practice your own mental health. I'm not gonna lie, it was ebbs and flows in New York City because I was in my early before I wasn't even 20 when I moved there. I was 17 and then I was in my 20s and I had my metabolism to keep me doing whatever I wanted to do, not always working out a ton and still being pretty healthy and fit. But as I'm 30 now, I need to practice staying active. And I think it's also important to do before you hit that point if you have a good metabolism. So for me right now, that's walking every day. I try to walk at least 3 miles every day. I'm walking on average 90 miles a month, which I am so proud of myself for. And exercise. Find ways to take care of your physical health. In turn, that will help your mental health. It is very true. So I'm not an expert here, but this is general knowledge. And with that, get a good night's rest. Sleep is so important. So practice in mental health. Therapy is also great. I went to therapy years ago. I haven't been recently, but do things that are serving your mental health, filling your cup up there. You are going to be better off and you're setting yourself up for success in this new city. Tip number 6, practice gratitude. It's so easy, in my opinion, to focus on negative feelings, especially when you're living somewhere new and unfamiliar. And moving, it's hard. Let's be real. It's hard. It's hard to be in a new place, but trying to find ways to practice gratitude is super important because at the end of the day, each day is a gift. As cheesy as it sounds, it is a blessing to go to sleep and wake up the next day and be alive. And if you are finding yourself in a really low state of mind and finding it really hard to find things to be grateful for, I would really encourage you to reach out to a friend, a safe space that you have, and get help, because getting help is nothing to be ashamed of. We all need help. No, I tell my boyfriend this all the time. It takes a village with a lot of things in life. So try to focus on the good. I have been using a gratitude journal recently. If that's not your vibe, jot things down on a piece of paper, even daily, or in your phone, but it's important to write it down. I was listening to a podcast with Oprah and person she was interviewing, and he was talking about how when you write things down, it actually enters your frontal lobe in your brain, and it's like basically top of mind. And when it's just in your head, it can be like jumbled in there. It's not necessarily top of mind. It's kind of there somewhere, but writing things down is so important. So practice gratitude. If you can't do it daily, try to do it weekly. Start small, and it can be the smallest things, like you are grateful that you're alive. You're grateful that you maybe have a job. You're grateful that you are able to support yourself, or you are grateful that you are going to school and you have the support to be able to do that. So there are lots of things that we can be grateful for, and it may be easier said than done. It's still a daily practice for me to be grateful and not get focused on all of the other noise, but it has been helping me as I get used to living in California, and I am here for it. Staying in touch with friends is the next tip. So you don't have to be physically present to stay friends with people. And I remind myself that every day because I haven't always been great at staying in touch with people that are not physically in the vicinity of me. It has been slight weakness. So that is the beauty of the digital world we live in. Use it to your advantage. Stay in touch with people. You can also make new friends that aren't physically where you are. I have made some friends through this podcast because I am putting myself out there, and I recognize that I can be friends with people that aren't just in California. So highly recommend stay in touch with people. It can be hard because you're juggling your new life and getting acclimated there, and I can attest that it can feel like you're getting lost in your own little world when you move somewhere new and pick up your life, but you have that safe space, those people that know you, understand you, and if you value their friendship, try to make sure that you're nurturing that friendship even though you're not physically there in person. I highly recommend FaceTime. I FaceTime my friends and check in through text even if you can't FaceTime. Small efforts make a long way when it comes to sustaining a friendship. So you can't expect the friendship to be sustained and nurtured with no effort. It's like anything. I mean, if you had a plant and you were trying to grow it, but you never watered it, how is it going to grow? So same thing with friendships. And I know from experience that I have let friendships go because I have been caught up in my own little world, and that's okay. I'm not like beating myself up, but it is important to nurture friendships if you want to sustain them. So, tip number 8, be patient with yourself and give yourself love. This one hits me hard because I am very ambitious and not always patient with myself and sometimes others around me, let's be real. So, self-love and patience, very important when you're in a new city and you're not familiar with your surroundings. Things are new, you're getting acclimated. If you have a timeline and are like me and are organized and have this ideal picture in your head of, I'm going to live somewhere new and within X many months, I'm going to make friends and I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to go on adventures every week or every month. And I think that's amazing. I encourage you to bring that mindset to your new city. I brought that mindset to New York and California, but also the reality is we need to be flexible and throw the timeline out. Embrace life's pivots because life is going to happen. And if we have this rigid plan of how we wanted it to happen or thought it would happen and aren't willing to be flexible with it, the result is that you are likely going to be unhappy because you're going to be fixated on this list that you put together before you got to the new city and experienced some potential obstacles. And you can't beat yourself up because you didn't check everything off your list. We have to be able to pivot and adapt. That is part of life and part of growing. And when you're somewhere new, there are a lot of opportunities for growth. So being resilient is a superpower in my opinion, and I am resilient, and sometimes I am really tapping into that resilience, and sometimes I need a reminder that I can be resilient and I have been resilient. So personally, I haven't done as much as I've wanted to being in California for 10 months now, but at the same time, I have done a lot. If I sit down, and I have sat down and talked to my boyfriend about this and look at what I've accomplished, I kept the podcast going. I celebrated my 1-year anniversary for the podcast. I have made memories with my family and my niece and nephew. And I have gone to concerts. There are a lot of things that I have done, and I'm just saying these things because it's things like this that might be easy to overlook that are actual experiences, and it's easy to take them for granted sometimes when you're somewhere new and you know all the things that you want to do, but maybe haven't accomplished them yet. So be patient with yourself, give yourself love. You will get there. And the beauty of a plan is that you can always shift things and still accomplish those things. And if you are somewhere temporarily, take a afternoon to sit down and prioritize the things that you want to get done. I did that when I was leaving New York City. I had a bucket list of things that I wanted to do before I left. And the bucket list was long. And then I reevaluated the bucket list and balanced in the fact that it wasn't the last time I was going to be in New York City. So it was okay if I didn't accomplish everything on my list, but I accomplished the things that were important to me. I love museums. So I went to some museums. I got to do that with my boyfriend, which was great. I went and ate at some restaurants that I really liked. And I spent time with people that I loved and embraced the city and the place that I was. So I don't think you can go wrong with being patient. Tip number 9, journal and document your adventures. Highly recommend you do this. It's important to embrace life and live in the moment. And it's also a beautiful thing to stop and take time to document it. And that finding that harmony with the two is a personal journey, but in my experience this can be in so many forms. For me, I love bringing my Polaroid camera to special events, family parties, when I was in New York City, people's birthdays, and especially when I travel somewhere new, even if I'm going on a day trip, I have a small Polaroid camera. I also have my phone, so I document through that way. And you can also do it through social media. Start a digital diary. If you've listened to last week's episode with Bridget Goodwin, she talks about how she's a digital creator and how she's really embraced it as a digital diary. And I love that. And it's become something really personal to her and not about the likes or the follows, but about documenting her growth journey. And highly recommend you listen to that episode. She actually recently moved to London and she was from Pennsylvania and she moved with her boyfriend. A whole new world. They wanted to travel, and I am not going to scoop the entire episode, but social media and a form of digital diary or journaling, maybe a podcast. I'm definitely using this as a opportunity to help me grow and a platform to encourage other people to grow. So, and I can't wait to look back on these episodes years later and see how much I've grown. The moral of this story is to define what works for you and find a way to document that. My boyfriend is really into journaling and he journals, and I think that's very valuable too. You'll be able to look back years later or take up a hobby or a passion project. Do something that is going to help you really stay in touch with yourself and do something that is filling your cup up and is helping you document that experience. You don't have to, but I think it's great. And that can even be by taking pictures if you go on walks. I love to take pictures on my phone. So I have a million pictures. And I was recently looking back at a ton of pictures from California because I was feeling like I hadn't done that much in California because of all of life has happened and things that my boyfriend and I didn't expect have happened, like getting laid off and my dad being sick and just real life things that require attention and time and effort and energy. And after scrolling through my phone, I realized I've done a lot. I maybe haven't posted it all on social media, but I've done a lot and it is right there in my phone. So physical proof sometimes when you're feeling low or feeling homesick or just needing a pick me up, I think helps. And the last tip is to embrace change. Remember, you can only control you. I know I say this a lot, but it's true. If you're unhappy or running into obstacles, roadblocks, take control, make a change. I think it's a beautiful thing to move to a new city and push yourself out of your comfort zone. But at the same time, if you did it and you really gave it an honest try, and I honestly think that you need to give someone a year before you decide to move, unless your life has totally been derailed. But moving is hard, especially if you haven't done it in a long time. You never know what's going to happen, and that is the beauty, because so many great things can happen as well. It's not just obstacles, but embrace that change. Give it a year, and if after a year you're really not feeling it, I would say then consider a change, and that's okay to move back to where you came from or move somewhere new. Granted, I know that moving is an expense in itself, but life is an experience, and an experience that's meant to be lived. And if that's cheesy, oh well. I truly believe it from someone who's lived on both coasts and did it at a young age when they didn't know what they were doing, and now at 29 and thought, this will be good. I'm still learning and growing and rolling with the punches. So embrace the change, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I did. And if you're vibing with this type of content, I would love to have more episodes that are straight to the point, giving you some life tips. And you can also apply these if you're in a city and have lived there for years. It's so easy to get in a comfort zone bubble and have your crew, have your people. And I was there, and that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But there are also always opportunities for us to grow as people. And I think that life is also about growing. So until next week, I love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you all so much for listening. If you have any time, please leave a review. 5 stars, maybe some words, wherever you listen to this. It's on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. So I would really appreciate it. It is for me so that I know that this content is resonating with you and can keep bringing you great content, or pivot and bring you content that you are looking for if there are certain things that you want me to talk about and I haven't covered it yet. So talk soon. Love you.
Music and editing done by Marco. You can find him at Midnight, MIDNITE_mind80 on Instagram for more of his work.